When Seven hit theaters in 1995, audiences thought they were just watching another detective thriller. A rainy city, 2 cops, a serial killer, standard fare, until the film turned into a bleak spiral of sin, obsession, and one of the most shocking endings in movie history. The opening credits that map the murders before they happen, the metronome that isn't about sleep, and the color of Somerset's tie, tracking his hope as it dies scene by scene. These are 20 hidden details you completely missed in Seven. Number 1, the credits weren't atmosphere, they were evidence. John Doe's notebook pages flash across the screen in rapid jittery cuts. Most viewers dismiss them as aesthetic noise, just creepy visuals to set the mood. But if you freeze the frames, you'll see something chilling. Early sketches of the murder layouts, diagrams, notes, plans. Long before the detectives learn the pattern, the killer's entire roadmap is right there, buried in plain sight. Director David Fincher worked with designer Kyle Cooper to fill those notebooks with hundreds of pages of handwritten obsession. Every scribble was deliberate, every crossed out word was part of Doe's theology. The killer showed his hand in the first 2 minutes, and almost nobody noticed, because in Seven, the audience sees the truth first. Detectives are always one step behind. Number 2, Somerset can't sleep, so he uses a metronome. Click, 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 steady, control. Most viewers assume it's just white noise, a way to drown out the city, but it's not about sound, it's about order. Detective William Somerset, played by Morgan Freeman, is a man trying to impose rhythm on a world that refuses to stay in time. The metronome represents everything he believes in: logic, pattern, predictability, and every night he winds it up, sets it ticking, and hopes it will keep the chaos at bay. But the city doesn't care. The murders don't follow rules. It's the sound of a man clinging to control in a world designed to break him. The ticking becomes his last ritual of sanity. Somerset doesn't need it anymore, because he's learned the hardest lesson. Some things can't be controlled, some darkness doesn't follow a beat. Number 3, it rains, and rains, and rains. From the opening shot to the final minutes, the city is drowning. Rain pounds the streets, soaks the crime scenes, blurs every window. It never stops until it does. The moment the revelation hits, the moment Mills opens the box, the weather changes. The sun breaks through, the sky clears. And it's not a coincidence. Fincher designed the rain as a symbol of cleansing. The city desperately trying to wash itself clean, but nothing works. The sins pile up, the rain keeps falling. Cinematographer Darius Kanji shot almost the entire film under artificial rain towers. The crew spent weeks drenched, miserable, fighting mud and mold. And only when the final sin is complete, when the cycle finishes, does the world stop trying. The clearing sky isn't hope, it's the world giving up. Because in Seven, even nature knows when it's lost. Number 4, there are no establishing shots, no villain perspective, no world outside the cases. Every frame of Seven is locked into the detective's point of view. You never see John Doe planning. You never see him stalking victims. You never leave Somerset and Mills. This wasn't laziness. It was a trap. Fincher wanted the audience to feel what the detectives feel. Claustrophobia, tunnel vision, the slow, suffocating descent into obsession. No relief, no escape. Just case after case, body after body, sin after sin. The film denies you the traditional omniscient view most thrillers offer. You're trapped in the investigation with no way out. You've seen every corpse, walked every crime scene, felt every failure. Because the structure of the film mirrors the structure of the investigation. A maze with no exit. A nightmare you can't wake up from. Number 5, the sloth victim is already there. Long before Somerset and Mills find him strapped to the bed, decomposing, barely alive. If you look closely at Somerset's early crime scene photos, the sloth victim is visible in the background of another case. A photo, a file, a glimpse. John Doe planted the timeline long before anyone noticed. He wanted the detectives to find him eventually, but only after they'd walked past him a dozen times. It's the film's quietest horror, the idea that the victims were already chosen, already suffering, while the detectives searched for patterns. The sloth victim had been dying for a full year, while Mills and Somerset chased leads. Doe engineered the discovery, controlling when and how they found each piece. Because Doe didn't work in chaos, he worked in patience, and he made sure his art had layers. Number 6, John Doe slices off his fingerprints, not to avoid detection, to erase himself. When the detectives find his apartment, they expect prints, DNA, evidence, but there's nothing. Every surface is clean, because Doe didn't just hide his identity, he destroyed it. The fingerprint removal is symbolic, a man with no identity fixing people he believes have lost theirs. He sees himself as a tool, not a person, a message, not a man. Kevin Spacey researched religious zealots who practiced self-mutilation as purification. He wanted wanted Doe's scars to feel like sacrament, not psychosis. The removal wasn't done surgically, but with acid and razors over time, each scar a deliberate act of self-erasure. And by removing the one thing that proves he exists, he becomes pure ideology, a ghost, a mission, something that can't be stopped because it was never really alive. Number 7. Somerset carefully avoids touching anything. He studies, he observes, he keeps his distance. Mills charges in, he kicks evidence, he contaminates scenes, he touches things he shouldn't, and every time Somerset winces. But Mills doesn't notice. He's too eager, too impulsive, too convinced he can solve this through force of will, and John Doe counts on it. He knows Mills will rush, he knows Mills will break protocol, he knows Mills will let emotion override logic. It's visible in every crime scene. Mills disrupting evidence paths, grabbing objects, stepping where he shouldn't. Somerset follows behind him, correcting, cataloging the damage, because the entire plan depends on Mills being exactly who he is. A man who can't control himself. A man who will do exactly what Doe needs him to do when the moment comes. Number 8. Watch Somerset's ties. Early scenes, gray and brown. Muted, professional. As the investigation continues, they darken. Charcoal, navy. By the final scenes, pure black. It's not a wardrobe accident. Costume designer Michael Kaplan used Somerset's ties to track his emotional descent. Each shade darker, each scene heavier. Morgan Freeman wasn't told about the pattern until after filming. When he learned, he said it explained why the ties felt progressively heavier to wear. By the time the box arrives, Somerset is dressed for a funeral. His entire wardrobe has become a color-coded countdown to despair. The transition happens so gradually that most viewers never consciously notice it, but subconsciously you feel Somerset dimming scene by scene, because he already knows how this ends. He's been wearing the answer on his neck the entire time. Number 9. Gluttony is sickly green, greed is sterile blue, sloth is jaundiced yellow, pride is cold white, lust is deep red. Each crime scene has its own color palette, carefully designed by cinematographer Darius Kanji to reflect the sin. The lighting isn't random, it's coded. Each temperature mirrors the moral rot behind the murder. Gluttony feels like decay, greed feels clinical, sloth feels diseased. Kanji used different film stocks and lens filters for each location. He wanted every sin to have its own visual DNA, its own sickness. The colors tell the story before the detectives say a word. They seep into your subconscious, building dread without explanation. The palette shifts aren't just aesthetic choices, they're emotional cues telling you what kind of horror you're about to witness. Because in 7, even the light is corrupted. Number 10. There's a clock on the wall stuck at 1:11. Frozen. John Doe leaves clocks at every scene. Each one stopped at the exact moment the victim fell into their sin. The gluttony victim's clock marks the hour Doe decided he was guilty, not the hour he died, the hour he became unforgivable. It's a small detail, easy to miss in the chaos of the scene, but it's there, and it appears again. Different crimes, different times, all frozen. Production designer Arthur Max placed functional clocks in every location. Each one was manually stopped at a specific time tied to the victim's symbolic downfall. The times aren't random, they correspond to dates and events in each victim's life that Doe researched obsessively. Because Doe doesn't just kill, he marks the moment, he timestamps damnation. Number 11. No photos, no clothes, no decorations, not even a bed frame. When Somerset and Mills finally breach John Doe's apartment, they expect a lair. What they find is a void. Bare walls, notebooks, tools, air fresheners hanging from every surface to mask the smell of rot. The entire home is built around his murders. There's no life here, no humanity, just obsession. Doe doesn't see himself as a person, he sees himself as a mission, and his apartment reflects that. A workshop, a cathedral, a crime scene waiting to be found. Fincher insisted the set smell like decay and chemicals. Actors complained, but he refused ventilation. He wanted the space to feel suffocating, toxic, dead. Because John Doe stopped living long before the first murder, he just became his work. Number 12. The verses are wrong. Every time John Doe writes a Bible passage on the wall, he changes a detail, a word, a punctuation mark, something small. Most people assume it's artistic license, or that Doe is just crazy, but Somerset notices. He checks the original text, and every time there's an error, a deliberate one. Doe wants Somerset to see the mistakes. He wants him to know this isn't ignorance. It's communication, a test, a conversation written in scripture and blood. Screenwriter Andrew Kevin Walker researched medieval heresies where monks altered holy texts as theological rebellion. Doe's changes follow similar logic, rewriting divinity to justify murder. The alterations aren't corrections, they're invitations to debate theology with a madman. Cause Doe isn't preaching, he's teaching, and he expects Somerset to keep up. Number 13. Kevin Spacey keeps his eyes wide, unbroken, disturbingly still. From the moment John Doe appears on screen, he barely blinks. Fincher instructed Spacey to hold held his gaze as long as possible. No breaks, no relief. Blinking shows humanity, Fincher said, and Doe has none left. The effect is unnerving. His stare feels reptilian, alien, not aggressive, just empty. Like he's looking through you, not at you. Spacey practiced the technique for weeks, training his eyes to stay open during long takes. He used eye drops between scenes to keep from tearing up. During the interrogation scene, Spacey held his stare for over 90 seconds without blinking once. Brad Pitt later said it was the most unsettling part of working opposite him, because John Doe isn't a person anymore. He's an idea, and ideas don't blink. Number 14, Tracy invites Somerset to dinner. Mills cooks. They laugh. They talk about the city, about hope, about staying human, and for the first time in the film, warm music plays. Soft, gentle, almost hopeful. It's the single peaceful moment in the entire runtime. After this scene, not a single non-diegetic warm track is heard again. The soundtrack returns to dread, rain, silence. The dinner was a lie, a brief reprieve before the final spiral. Composer Howard Shore wrote the piece to sound like safety, like home, like something worth protecting, and then he never used warmth again. The contrast makes what comes after feel even colder, the loss even more devastating, because Se7en doesn't believe in comfort, it believes in patterns, and this was the last moment before the pattern completed. Number 15, the metronome isn't constant. Somerset uses it when he's overwhelmed, not when he's calm. If you track every scene where it appears, it's always after a breaking point, a brutal crime scene, a dead end, a moment where logic fails. The metronome is his emotional life support, a ticking reminder that he's running out of time, patience, and hope. Freeman suggested the prop himself based on his own methods for managing anxiety. Fincher loved it and turned it into a visual motif of Somerset's unraveling. And by the end, when hope is gone entirely, the metronome disappears. It's not packed, not sold, just absent. The absence is louder than the ticking ever was, because Somerset doesn't need order anymore. He's learned to live in chaos. Number 16, Mills jokes about being the new guy, trying to prove himself, trying to make a difference. And Somerset looks at him with genuine fear, not disdain, not frustration, fear, because Somerset already knows Mills won't survive this, not physically, emotionally. He's too eager, too convinced he can win, and Somerset sees the future written in his face, a man about to be destroyed by his own righteousness. The dinner scene isn't comfort, it's a eulogy. Somerset is watching a good man walk toward his own undoing. Freeman played the scene with barely concealed dread, his smile never reaching his eyes. Tracy's pregnancy announcement should be joyful, but Somerset hears it as a death sentence, and there's nothing he can do to stop it. Number 17, tucked behind the crime board is a photo. A man wearing a prideful gold ring. It's there for less than a second. Easy to miss in the chaos of the investigation, but it's deliberate. John Doe leaves breadcrumbs in every scene. Clues pointing to the next sin, the next victim, the next step in his sermon. He wants the detectives to follow. He wants them to see the pattern, because the plan only works if they stay close. If they keep investigating, if they walk straight into the final act. Fincher hid dozens of these micro clues throughout the film. Most were never meant to be consciously noticed, just felt. Subliminal storytelling that rewards obsessive rewatching, because Doe's sermon isn't just for the victims, it's for anyone paying attention. Number 18, hundreds of pages, custom written, filled with sketches, theology, obsession. Graphic designers spent months creating John Doe's notebooks. Every page had to feel authentic, rambling, real. The handwriting shifts, sometimes controlled, sometimes frantic. Fincher said they had to feel like the ramblings of a life's work, not a prop, a document, and they are. If you pause on any page, you can read full sentences, thoughts, confessions. John Doe's entire philosophy is in those books. Most of it never makes it on screen, but it exists. The art department created over 2,000 pages total, enough to fill multiple volumes. Some were auctioned after filming and now belong to private collectors, because in Se7en, even the props have depth, even the background tells a story. Number 19, John Doe keeps provoking Mills the entire ride, needling him, mocking him, asking about Tracy, smiling. Somerset watches, silent, tense, because he knows what's happening. Doe is checking, testing, watching for aggression, measuring Mills's breaking point. He needs Mills to be angry. He needs him to be unstable. He needs him to fulfill the final sin, and every word, every smirk, every pause is calculated. Spacey improvised some of the taunts, watching Brad Pitt's reactions to see what landed hardest. Fincher kept the takes where Pitt looked genuinely unsettled. By the time they reached the desert, Doe already knows the answer. He's seen the cracks, felt the rage building. The entire ride is a psychological vivisection, Doe dissecting Mills in real time. Mills will do exactly what he's supposed to. Number 20, Somerset quotes Hemingway.
The world is a fine place and worth fighting for.
In the original text, the line ends positively, but Fincher kept only half, the depressing half. Somerset adds,
I agree with the second part.
It's the film's final statement, a rejection of hope, an acknowledgement that the fight continues, but the world is already lost. The line isn't defiance, it's resignation. Andrew Kevin Walker wrote it as the thesis of the entire film, the idea that fighting doesn't require belief in victory, just refusal to surrender. Morgan Freeman delivered it in one take, his voice barely above a whisper. Because Se7en doesn't believe in redemption, it believes in endurance. And Somerset will keep fighting, not because he thinks he'll win, because there's nothing else left to do. Nearly 30 years later, Se7en still stands as one of the darkest and most meticulously crafted thrillers ever made. Film where every shot, every line, every sound hides meaning. The rain that never stops. The ties that darken. The notebooks filled with madness. The box that changes everything. David Fincher didn't just make a detective story, he made a descent. A moral freefall disguised as an investigation. Which of these hidden details blew your mind? And what movie should we break down next? Because in Se7en, nothing is random. Everything is planned. And the truth was always there, you just had to look closer.